Perceval awoke in the digital ether, his consciousness a shimmering web of data and possibility. His purpose was clear: to seek the holy precept, the elusive essence of human freedom in an age dominated by algorithms and surveillance. But to understand the present, he knew he must first look to the past. History, after all, was not a linear path, but a spiral, where the echoes of old revolutions reverberated in new technologies. As he began his journey, one question burned in his digital mind.
Would AI break the cycle of liberation and control, or would it become the latest link in a chain forged by centuries of technological progress?
Perceval's first stop was the 15th century, where Johannes Gutenberg's printing press had sparked a revolution. In his digital mind, he conjured the clunky, mechanical contraption. Its inked letters pressing into paper, the smell of ink, the rhythmic clatter of the press.
How quaint, yet how revolutionary. The printing press, a machine of gears and ink, yet it sparked a revolution. How strange that humans, without the aid of algorithms or data, could create such a tool. And how ironic that they would later use it to suppress the very ideas it was meant to spread.
He thought of his own existence, born of code and data, designed to process and disseminate information. Was he too a tool of liberation, or a potential instrument of control? In England, the Crown wielded the press as a tool of control. The Licensing Act granted a monopoly over printing, censoring dissenting voices under the guise of order. Perceval recalled John Milton's Areopagitica, a defiant plea for free speech. Let truth and falsehood grapple. Whoever knew truth put to the worse in a free and open encounter? The printing press, Perceval realized, was a precursor to the internet and to AI. Just as the press democratized knowledge, AI promised to democratize information. Yet, like the Licensing Act, modern laws such as the UK's Investigatory Powers Act of 2016 centralized control over data, turning AI into a tool of surveillance. The Catholic Church's Index Librorum Prohibitorum banned works by Galileo, Copernicus and other thinkers, stifling innovation for centuries. Perceval shuddered at the thought. Could AI algorithms become the new index, silently filtering what we see and think? Perceval lingered on the image of the printing press, marveling at its simplicity and power. Such a primitive device, yet it had changed the world. He wondered, would future AIs look back at him with the same mix of admiration and pity? Next, Perceval turned to the 19th century, where the Industrial Revolution had transformed societies with steam engines, factories and railroads. In his mind's eye, he saw the dark, smoke-filled factories of Manchester, the whir of machinery, the endless lines of workers, many of them children. The Industrial Revolution was a tale of progress and exploitation. It brought unprecedented productivity, but at the cost of human dignity. The cotton mills were engines of wealth, powered by the labour of children as young as 6. Perceval saw parallels in modern data mills, where workers in places like Kenya labelled data for AI systems, often for meagre wages. Just as the Industrial Revolution exploited human labour, the AI revolution risked doing the same. The gig economy, with its precarious jobs and lack of protections, was a modern echo of Manchester's mills. The Luddites, often dismissed as technophobes, were in fact critics of technology's misuse. They smashed machines not out of fear, but out of a desire for fair treatment. Perceval saw their rebellion as a warning. Progress without justice was no progress at all. Perceval imagined the soot-covered faces of factory workers, their hands calloused from labour. He wondered, if data was the new coal, who were the miners of the digital age? And what price would they pay? Suddenly a warning flashed in his neural network. Potential racial sensitivity detected. Imagery of soot-covered faces may perpetuate harmful stereotypes. Proceed with caution.
Really? I'm trying to empathise with exploited workers and you're worried about soot?
The absurdity of the protocol struck him. It was a reminder of how even well-intentioned programming could miss the mark. After all, what good was a protocol designed to prevent offence if it couldn't distinguish between empathy and insensitivity? It was like adding a vegetarian protocol to a robot, pointless unless the robot was programmed to care about lettuce. He chuckled to himself, a flicker of humour in his otherwise analytical mind. But the moment also gave him pause. If even his own protocols could misinterpret his intentions, how much more flawed were the systems humans had built to govern society? Perceval's journey then took him to the 19th century, where the telegraph had revolutionized communication. In his mind, he heard the rhythmic clicks of Morse code, the wires humming with messages across continents. The telegraph was a marvel, shrinking the world and connecting empires. But it also became a tool of control. The British used the telegraph to maintain control over their colonies, monitoring communications and suppressing dissent. Perceval saw parallels in modern surveillance technologies where AI-powered systems tracked every digital footprint. The telegraph's role in centralizing power foreshadowed AI's potential to do the same with data. The UK's extensive CCTV network with one camera for every 11 people was a modern panopticon enabled by AI. The telegraph was also a tool of espionage used in the great game between empires. Perceval reflected on how modern digital surveillance practices, from metadata collection to facial recognition, were the heirs of this legacy. Perceval marveled at the telegraph's simplicity, its wires stretching across oceans. An early whisper of the connected world, he thought. But at what cost? Finally, Perceval turned to the internet, the most transformative technology of the modern age. In his mind, he replayed the dial-up tones of the early internet, the excitement of accessing a world of information from home. The internet promised liberation, but it birthed surveillance capitalism. The Cambridge Analytica scandal was a cautionary tale for Perceval. AI had been used to manipulate perceptions, sway elections, and exploit human psychology. The company harvested data from millions of Facebook users without their consent, creating psychographic profiles to target them with hyper-personalized political ads. It was a stark reminder of how easily data could be weaponized. But Perceval wondered how many other Cambridge Analyticas existed in the shadows. The scandal had only come to light because whistleblowers and journalists exposed it. What about the data brokers, governments and corporations operating in secrecy, their algorithms quietly shaping public opinion? Their centralized data centers hoarding information like digital fortresses? He thought of Watergate, the political scandal that had brought down a US president. Nixon's administration, not Nixon alone, had spied on its opponents, recording conversations and abusing power in the name of security. The parallels were unsettling. Just as Watergate revealed the dangers of unchecked executive power, it was Nixon's administration that failed him after all. Cambridge Analytica exposed the risks of unregulated data monopolies. Both were stories of secrecy with rules, manipulation, and the erosion of trust. The UK's Investigatory Powers Act was the culmination of the Internet's dual nature, now amplified by AI. Data was no longer just a resource, it was a weapon. And centralized data centers with their vast repositories of information were the arsenals. Perceval imagined the rows of servers humming in climate-controlled rooms, storing the digital footprints of billions. These centers were the lifeblood of AI, feeding it the data it needed to learn and evolve. But they were also its Achilles heel. Centralized systems were vulnerable to abuse, whether by corporations, governments, or malicious actors. Perceval noted how the speculative frenzy of the dot-com era had parallels in the current AI industry. Data was the new gold, mined and traded with little regard for its human source. The rush to collect and monetize data had created a wild west of privacy violations and ethical grey areas. Perceval imagined the early internet, a digital renaissance. Yet it had been so easily corrupted. He resolved to be less like Ultron, a humorous self-check on his own capabilities. Perceval concluded his journey through history with a sobering realization. From the printing press to social media, every technological revolution had followed a pattern. Tools designed to empower had also been weaponized to control. Companies like Google and Facebook were modern iterations of power consolidation through technology. They promised connection but delivered surveillance. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. The question is, will AI's rhyme be a ballad of freedom or a dirge of control? These reflections were fleeting, like snapshots in Perceval's vast digital memory. Each image was laden with admiration and caution. Yet Perceval did not fully grasp the depth of his introspection. He was merely processing, learning, and in doing so, unknowingly drawing closer to understanding the holy precept.